We'll just see. Okay, so it hasn't given me a notification of anything bad. Okay, we're looking like we're good, I think. I think.
I'm not seeing it come up yet.
Yes. Notification of anything bad. I'm seeing it running now, so I think we are in fact live. But
Hmm.
yeah, we are live. Well, one of these days we'll actually get good at this.
Right. I don't know why I'm not seeing it. Like, there's no notification or anything.
Are you looking at it? Sorry, everybody who may be watching right now. We're
YouTube's like user interface has gotten extraordinarily shitty.
yes, it
It's
has.
stopped looking
Well, I'm
pathetic.
seeing that it's live on the studio side, so I think
Okay,
we're
yeah, we
hopefully
got a comment here that we are in
okay.
fact live.
Good,
Thank you.
good.
Thank you,
Yeah, because
Jennifer.
it's always, we never know, because the last time, or not the last time, but one of the times, it was we thought we were live and we weren't, and did like an entire
Whoops.
yeah.
I
All right.
don't know if we figured out what we were going to talk about, did we?
I think we were saying maybe tariffs and maybe some other stuff, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we
Uh,
could start there.
I
We've,
yeah,
we've never actually touched on that subject ever.
no,
One of the
no.
few subjects we've never talked
I know. It's crazy. Yeah, we're we're down to the last handful of things we've never talked about.
Well, I mean, what do you think about like tariffs in general? Like, do you
I I
think
think
they're useful or?
I think it's bullshit. I'd
Mhm.
much rather have there not be any tariffs at all.
Yeah.
I think just free trade is better for everybody, but I get why different countries put tariffs in place. It's a protectionism essentially. So it's like, oh, there's this market over here in another country that's making this stuff really cheap, and that's affecting our companies and workers over here that are making stuff, because it's like, oh well, yeah, now you could buy something real cheap from China, and that's impacting industry in the US or something. Every country does it. And I I understand the idea behind it, but there's a lot of things they never go away. Like
Yeah.
the chicken tax, for instance, we like with Europe and the US, and that's why we can't, like, nobody buys nobody in the US buys European trucks because of that tax. And that's been there for like eons, as long as I've been alive. That actually
Huh.
Ford makes the transit, the transit van, like Transit and Transit Connect and stuff. They make them in Europe, but to get them to the U.S., get this. This is how stupid it is. Um, the tariff is so high, like that, like what they do, they build this as a van, okay, and because it's a cargo van, essentially it's a commercial cargo van, but they put seats in it, so it's more like a passenger van, and they put windows all the way around. They bring them, they ship them to the US, and then they come into the Ford's facilities. Ford takes the windows and the seats out and puts in panels, like solid panels, and then it's like, so they basically convert it back to a van. It's ridiculous.
Oh
It's to
God.
avoid that tax. And like, think about how much waste that is. Like,
Right.
why can't we just get rid of it? And like every country does it. And I could see, like, from a strategic standpoint, that you could certainly kind of use it as like a hammer to get people to kind of like behave the way you want them to, or to maybe get people to move, like get a country to actually do something when they're kind of dragging their feet. Like, you could be like, well, we're gonna put a 200% tariff on all your shit if you don't do this. And like, yeah, that'll definitely, because obviously, like, that's a big deal for an
Yeah.
economy if they can't export stuff. But it shouldn't be permanent. Like, but still, it's like, I don't know, because ultimately, who's affected? Like, it's all a political thing. It doesn't, like, who's affected are the people in the countries, like the average person. the person working in the factory or the person buying a product, like they're impacted by that more than anybody,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I mean, aside from the fact that I feel like that sort of practice only furthers the whole concept of borders and us versus them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I kind of see what you mean about like addressing economical issues, but I kind of wonder if like I don't know, like I'm hoping that this move that Trump is making, like the way he's flip flopping on it, makes it look a little bit more like it's just a scheme to um, get stocks to lower and then buy them all up at
I
cheap
it
prices, and then like,
it's more of a
but
scheme. It's more of a scheme to like basically get certain things put into place, like get countries to come to the bargaining table and agree to certain conditions about things. That's really what it comes down to. um
yeah, but I mean, there's so many other countries in the world, like it, I think they're all just going to be like, yeah, you know what, fuck you. Like, go ahead and like
they
build
they
your
might
own shit, with
they,
your jacked up economy. Like, nothing's
well,
going to be
yeah,
cheap,
and like
like,
you can look at other countries, like certain Canada, for instance, has some like ridiculously high tariffs on certain stuff from the US. Like milk is a good example, and that's to like essentially make the dairy industry in Canada be in Canada. There's whole like story behind that and stuff, but like that's the thing. So we don't really export milk to Canada because nobody in Canada would buy it. It's too expensive. um and and they,
why would we? I like, they can have cows. It's
well, no,
like,
but a lot of commerce is export. Export is a huge chunk of an economy nowadays, like being a global economy. And I definitely, yeah. What bugs me about it is kind of what you were saying, is that like it does reinforce this kind of isolationist idea and things, and it's like, well, to some extent, I think that might be good, and maybe like in the short term, because we have kind of whittled down our industrial base in the U.S. And spread our manufacturing all over the place. And one of the problems that was highlighted was during COVID. Like, oh yeah,
yeah,
when everything's closed, like fuck, we don't even make this stuff.
yeah,
Medicine. In fact, a lot of stuff's made in China. A lot of our medicine and stuff comes from there, and it's like, oh
and
damn,
Germany.
and Germany too. Yeah.
Mhm.
So like if you can't, like that is a problem. Like we need to get our house in order and make sure that at least we have the capacity to make everything that's critical for our livelihood and our existence and stuff like that.
I mean, it won't happen overnight though.
No,
Like,
no, no.
so like the the end result might be what you want, but the
Mhm.
damage that's done by the tariff on the way to get to that result, it
Yeah, it
makes
is.
it
It's
kind of erases any gains, I
well,
think.
the problem here, see, okay, there's already damage done that has been, being is ongoing. That's been going on for decades, many, like longer than I've been alive. And there does come a point. I mean, it's unsustainable. There comes a point we need to course correct, and yes, to some extent, doing something like this, like mass tariffs and stuff, to kind of lock things down and encourage people to build in the US. If okay, it, how do I describe it? So the problem is that presidential administrations are ephemeral. They only exist for a very short period of time. And in order to correct the damage and the systemic damage that's been done, it's going to take a long time. Like it is not, you're not going to fix it. Like you said, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take years and years and years. And people are impatient. That's the biggest problem. Like you can't. It'll take like easily a decade, probably, to like, if we did just completely lock things down to where like nobody wants to buy stuff from other countries and we start making things in the U.S. Yes, it'll take about a decade, and I think people don't have that kind of patience. Most people don't even have $500 in savings, So
Yeah.
being able to
I,
weather that storm is really tough. And to me, I think that it's an optics thing as well. It like if if Trump's not known for his eloquence, then
I
but if he he has like this huge picture of Reagan in the Oval Office or whatever,
oh, of
because he
course.
admires Reagan. And now see if he had the kind of way of conveying ideas that Reagan did, maybe he could get people, or say like Kennedy, right? Like motivation kinds of speeches to say like, look, we have to do this and we need to buckle down. We've got to like have some kind of like a sense of direction and purpose that like
Well,
the
30
moon.
years ago, when you listen to like recordings of how Trump talked when he was younger, like back then, maybe he could have actually
Mhm.
been like more diplomatic.
Yeah,
But like there's clearly some kind of like mental change, whether it's dementia or not, I can't
he's
say,
getting
but
old. He's getting old, and he's getting to the point where he doesn't give a shit anymore. Basically, is what it comes down to. That's
yeah, but like I feel like this might actually be an opportune time for something like we've been talking about off and on for like creating a system of commerce that doesn't operate whatsoever in any exchange form with currency as it is
mm,
now, like move away from that because it's like the biggest dumpster fire ever.
mm,
Like and these tariffs are only creating uh, neighboring dumpster fires all over the world. Like it's really affecting everything everywhere.
well, and that the big issue there is everybody's dependency on the U.S. dollar. Like the U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency, and
Mm.
like it or not, that's how it is. So anything that happens, I mean, the 2008 housing crash and all the stuff that happened there impacted the entire world because we,
Mm.
the U.S. Does have that kind of influence for good or bad.
Well,
And
and China was like poised to become like like ahead of the dollar, like become
mhm.
the new world standard.
The yuan,
And
yeah, would be.
yeah, and I think this is probably just going to accelerate that timeline.
It might, I don't know. And but see, it's kind of a like an overcorrection, like what people do when they're in icy conditions driving, and they get all, rather than just calmly moving deliberately, you kind of panic and stuff. And I kind of see this as sort of like a panic reaction. And it may not be the best thing because yeah, it is kind of for the US, from a US perspective, China is a major threat to the US's economy and economic dominion, essentially. Um, and they, China is certainly, they have acted very like soft imperialism is what I call it, kind of like taking over in Africa and various other places and buying up
Yeah.
land. Canada actually, they're very active in Canada for whatever reason. Um, and
Well, and the U.S. has been very active in suppressing African economy, so like that was just kind of like a crime of opportunity, I think.
Well,
Um,
yeah, yeah, I mean, I don't think, I think it's fine to conduct commerce and industry in various countries. There's a lot of opportunities, but eh, everybody it takes advantage of everybody else when they can.
yeah,
Basically, is the unfortunate truth. But it, yeah, I don't know what the ultimate outcome is going to be. But I mean, my point, what I was going for, is like, you remember, well, neither of us remember, but during World War II, right? During World War II, there was a lot of rationing. It's like, you could only buy so much of something, and certain things you just simply couldn't get, like copper. That's why during 1943, the U.S. issued the steel penny, which I have a few of them. They're kind of cool, but they needed copper for communications wire and stuff like that. And but what see if they just simply did it and just said, "Well, I don't know, suck it up," then people would they rebel against that, of course. But what, there was a war, and it's like, well, we got to win against the Japanese and the Nazis, right? So plant your victory gardens and yay patriotism and we can do it. It was like the we can do it thing with the woman and the overalls
Oh, yeah.
and stuff like that. That's more kind of the right way to motivate people, is to like you basically have a sense of purpose of why you're doing that. That way people, even if things kind of suck for a while, it's like, okay, well, it's sort of like anything where you have to suffer a little bit in the short term for a long-term gain. That's part of being an adult, in fact, by the way, is learning how to do that. Like, oh, I'm not going to buy all those things because I'm saving for something bigger than that. And
Yeah.
and and that's fine. But I don't see that as being I definitely don't see any of that being conveyed. It's sort of just kind of like, well, we're going to do this, and trust me, I have a plan. We're just like, I don't know. I never
I
trust
mean,
politicians.
if the point is to bring like the industry back to the US, why are there tariffs on things that literally can't happen in the US, like growing bananas? Like it's not the right climate, you know?
Yeah. Well, and
So
certain components,
tariffs
because
on
like
bananas, what the fuck?
well, like auto manufacturing, there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, we're going to put tariffs on cars, right? So that we can bring back car manufacturing to the US, but not put tariffs on some of the components. Like, hey, it's perfectly fine to buy alternators from Mexico or engines from Japan or something like that. That's okay, but we bring them all to the US and assemble them into a car and sell it as a car. Like we have to accept the fact that we are a global economy and a global industry that like everybody and it's perfectly fine for there to be a lot of players. Like that's healthy. But yeah, we're not going to be able to, it's not going to be, because back in the day in Detroit and stuff like that, before I was born, basically Detroit was a powerhouse. But like there were factories assembling cars, and then right next door there were factories making parts, and like they would just like roll them over across the street. Like, oh yeah, here's the company that makes wheels, and it,
Right.
they make wheels, and then Ford buys the wheels and puts them on their trucks and cars
Well,
and
that
stuff.
was also the time when like parts were standardized. Like you had regulations on stuff like that, so that like it was easy to repair these things. They would last much longer
Mhm.
because you could repair them yourself, and they were actually built to last, so you wouldn't have
Well,
to repair them as
that was
often.
not that was not a product of regulations. That was a product of like psychology, essentially, of culture. That the people back in the day, they bought
Well,
something and expected to be able to repair it because that's what we've been doing for a long time.
yeah, but you take the regulation away, and then all these companies are like, "Oh, if I build my headlight in a funny shape,
Well,
and they'll have to
yeah,
buy my headlight."
the
So
headlight
that's
the headlight is
it's
one specific thing,
absolutely regulation
but
that
we have way,
helps
way,
that.
way more regulations now than we ever did when it comes to car stuff. But
But
like,
it's the type of regulation, it's not
well,
it's
yeah,
not like like saying you have to do something a certain way is one thing, but like saying like everything needs to be the same shape or whatever, like back when we could go to Fred Meyer and get a $20 headlight, like that
well,
was
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, it was
And
like three
actually,
different types of headlights.
and actually, right now there kind of are only just a handful. They're just a bulb insert that you put in there. But of course, the housing now is
Yeah,
whatever. People make
yeah.
whatever, and so
Remember my Nissan, to change the bulb, we had to take the front end off of the car.
I've had to do that in multiple occasions.
That
Yeah,
was
and that,
ridiculous.
but that does come down to a culture thing, because most people just take it to a shop. That's what we've been conditioned to do. Just take it to a shop, whatever. I don't even want to touch it, and that I hate that. I want more people to start adopting the principle of like ownership and hands on. Like you take it apart, learn how it works, and then encourage the manufacturers to make things with that in mind. Like we were just talking before the show about my phone, the Unihertz phone. This company is like, they make their phones with regular screws, just Phillips screws, nothing, no weird security screws, Phillips screws, everything comes apart, is made to come apart. They sell parts on their website. You can buy screens, batteries, whatever. I mean, this one has a keyboard. You can buy a replacement keyboard, all kinds of stuff. And they have instructional videos. Like, they embrace the right to repair concept.
Right.
And
that's all I'm talking about is regulating standardization.
well, standards
like you
are
said, Phillips screwdrivers like is all you need, like that.
yeah. Well, standards are generally set by the industry, but like, we don't need to regulate it. What we need is a culture shift. People, we need, like, that's why it's like, I encourage everybody, go to Unihertz. If you want to buy a new phone, they have actually quite a few of good variety of devices. Some of them are really freaking awesome. Buy, support the companies who do this, and don't support the assholes like Apple that actively, like, hate. They hate the consumer. They're anti-consumer. They do not like their customers. Don't stop buying that shit. Stop it. Go to companies who believe in that. Give them all your money.
Well, we have a comment here. It's more that people don't want to be bothered with repairs. It's a good point. Like, like the reason beyond the cult status of Apple, like, I think the reason that people go to them is because, and this is true, they're buying a quality product. Like, it is made well.
Yes.
That doesn't mean it's not made to break sooner than it could.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it is still made well, and you feel like you get what you're paying for. But
and one thing Apple does really well, and I guess, it's a double-edged sword, right? You can go with some kind of off-brand Android thing and have full ownership, and maybe it's a little bit more effort to get everything to sync up and work correctly. Or you can go with something like Apple, where it's like, the saying, of course, is it just works, right? Like, the Apple ecosystem, they've carefully developed an ecosystem where like everything that's Apple kind of works friendly. It plays nice with each other. And there is value in that, but there's also, it comes at a cost, and the cost is loss of autonomy when it comes to our property, our devices, the things that we buy. And so I say, because it's like the tariff thing. Like, yes, it's a little bit frustrating at times, and maybe, it'll take a while, some growing pains for all this to sort itself out, but it's worth it in the long run that we recover something that we've lost. Because I go back, like, I collect old stuff. I'm sure you know that, especially old tech. And I have had these old radios and stuff like that had a little instruction manual, and in the instruction manual was the schematics, like a wiring diagram, essentially, within the manual that came with the radio. Sometimes it's, in fact, if you open the back cover, there's a little paper thing glued onto the back that has the schematics. There will be parts lists and stuff indicating exactly, like, the tubes and the various components, and you could order them. Like, that was the norm back in the day. People loved to tinker. And maybe you as an individual don't necessarily want to bother with that, but hey, somebody else does. And remember, there used to be shops that repaired radios, TV repair shops and stuff. You'd take it to like some old guy that had, been around forever and knew how to fix things. And nobody does that now. TVs are designed, I mean, it's basically like the concept, this idea of, like, if you widen a highway, that it won't improve traffic because there's just more cars will be there, which is totally true. And if if people just stop bothering with repairing and say, whatever, I'll just throw it away and get another one, well, then companies will just adapt to that. They'll be like, oh, well, nobody wants to repair anything anymore, so why bother? Let's just use glue. Well, make it as cheap as possible, make it easy to assemble, and because nobody cares. Like, that's the problem.
That's a chicken and the egg sort of thing, I think.
Well, but I mean, it is a fact that nobody cares. Like, why does nobody care? Is it because people make things not repairable, or do people make things not repairable because nobody cares?
I think it is a laziness thing, probably. There's some comments here about, like the planned obsolescence side of things with Apple and so on here.
Mhm.
Do you want to address some of that? Do you have it in front of you there?
Yeah, yeah. Apple is irritating. However, since if you break a screen, you can't replace it yourself, or you brick the phone. With Android, you generally don't have that issue. This is true. Yeah, that is a very annoying thing that Apple intentionally
Mm.
integrates components. It's kind of like the 10 Nest chip in the Nintendo Entertainment System. Um, and yeah, it will actually brick the device if you put in like a foreign part.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, Apple claims like, well, but it's for because something could catch fire or it could something bad could happen if you plug the wrong thing in, which maybe, but that's not. We know that's not the reason.
Yeah,
Um,
Samsung's a little bit like that too.
yeah,
You have to use a Samsung USB
the,
cable. It's like, oh,
the
fuck off.
more and more they are, yeah.
Fuck
And
off.
then most folks can't afford a new phone, but a screen repair is much less expensive, which is true. A lot of the parts that's what I'm saying. Like we need as consumers to take power back. We need to like vote with our wallet, essentially.
Mm.
Like
Well,
just suffer the maybe minimal inconvenience for the ultimate goal of taking control back and in our putting it in our hands. And
remember when we had a business and we were doing like third party TV repair?
yeah,
Like how expensive like some of those circuit boards were.
yeah.
Like you would like if you had to buy that yourself and didn't have the warranty, you would just rather buy a new TV. Like
Mm-hmm.
they were that
Well,
much.
and this goes back to what I'm saying. Like we need to demand quality, which costs more. Like I have a belt, and this is a good example. I have a belt that I bought from Nordstrom in 1996. Okay, cost me $40, which in '96 was a lot of money when you're making like
Mm-hmm.
$5 an hour. That's a hell of a lot of money for a belt. But I thought, you know what? I'm gonna splurge, and because I love belts, and I'd be buying these cheap ass belts that were like $5 or something like that, and they'd fall apart in a week. And so I bought this $40 belt, and of course Nordstrom has a lifetime warranty on everything. And so, but you know what? I haven't had to take it back. I have been wearing this belt. I'm wearing it right now. I've been wearing it since 1996. So, and it's still here. Like I figured that out with shoes because I used to buy these cheap shoes and stuff, and they'd start falling apart within a couple of months, maybe half a year. And it's like, oh man, I'd always going back and buying more shoes. And finally I was like, well, you know what? I'm gonna buy some nice shoes. I'm gonna spend like $120 and buy some shoes. And what do you know? They last for years. And now I'm on like the police duty boot sort of thing, which is like those they last. And it's like, oh, they have removable insoles. You can order replacement insoles, which is really the only thing you pretty much in the short term need to worry about. They're like we need to get back to that where we buy things for permanence, and that's a environmentally friendly thing as well. That quality made stuff, made with care, made to last, made to be repaired, that maybe costs more. And it's okay that it costs more because you actually, in the long run, save money. Instead
Yeah.
of buying, a new pair of $20 shoes every few months, you buy $120 pair of shoes every several years.
Well,
You
on
know?
top of that, I highly recommend people get custom made insoles.
Yes.
Like once I
Oh
had
yeah.
that done, my knee pain, most of my back pain was almost instantly gone.
Yeah.
Like,
You'd be surprised how much, like how impactful that is.
yeah.
Yeah. Good
Like
point.
I was kicking myself for not doing this like 20 years ago because, I've, you know me, like when we were roommates and I was like 20, even though you're 7 years older than me, you were calling me old man because I threw my back out looking at CDs.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I'm
Oh
just like
yeah.
it was even like this high. I didn't have to bend over or anything. I pulled out a drawer of CDs and I was like, ah.
Yeah, I remember that. I know. Well, and
Uh,
I think we need like, and it doesn't, it doesn't it, do- it, the idea that made in the USA equals quality is not really true.
No.
But I think made locally, if it's made in the USA, I'd consider that, like, if you live in the US and you buy from the US, it's kind of made locally. And there's environmental aspects there too. Is like you don't have to
Yeah.
ship things quite as far. The infrastructure, like there's a lot of benefits to that. Also, like, oh, it's a company that exists. You could like drive up there and like go in there and complain. It's like actual people that you can communicate with.
Throw a tire through the window of Discount Tire kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's benefits there. And plus it's like, well, if okay, if you're exporting, like a company in China doesn't give two shits. They're just going to make something that all they see is like, oh, somebody buys it, it goes in a vehicle, off it goes. And as long as we make it good enough that they keep buying more, that's good enough. But when a sense of pride, because it's like, oh yeah, this is the town where these shoes are made or this flashlight is made, and like they take pride in it, because it's like, oh yeah, um, there's value there. And so it's like, I think I like the idea of kind of localizing manufacturing as much as possible, for a lot of different reasons. But I mean, certainly economically, it's good, like jobs and stuff like that. Instead of just, most of the jobs being paper pushing office jobs, you actually have people putting their hands on machines and operating stuff and building factory equipment and repairing it and stuff
I
like
mean,
that.
I don't I don't see it in such a binary fashion though. I don't see it like we either manufacture it at home or we manufacture it abroad. Like there are and of course this is all in regards to like the jobs, like bring the jobs back to the US or send the jobs abroad. But
Which is
like
ostensibly what the tariffs are supposed to do. Like that,
yeah, right. So like that's a very black and white way
Mhm.
of looking at the problem. Like to kind of bounce back to the whole idea that we're really in a post scarce world. Like the jobs kind of don't matter. Like
Yeah.
of course they do matter because our economy is structured in a way that they have to, but
Mhm.
we don't have to have them matter anymore. Like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
robotics could actually take the place of a lot of this stuff, or
Mhm.
cheap labor, like whatever, but like we could actually make it in such a fashion that it's pretty affordable to do with very little human labor.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're definitely on track to do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
it
so
is
the only
inevitable.
hurdle is making sure that people are able to have a sustainable life
Yeah. Yeah.
without those jobs,
And
like
that's the
that's
thing. It's like it will take time for all that to sort itself out. But that's a thing. It's a conversation that should be being had now. Probably
mhm.
should have started like at least 10 years ago. But still, it's a conversation that we need to have. It's like, okay, well, what is the future going to look like when we completely automate everything? Um, but that, like, in the meantime, there's certain things, and yeah, I agree that it's not black and white. I mean, I kind of alluded to that before. Like, we do depend on global cooperation to do things. Like, we can't grow everything here. We can't mine. We can't get every resource from within the U.S. We do have to trade, and there's value in having trade partners. For instance, peace. Um, that like world peace can really only be achieved with global trade cooperation. Um, because it's like, oh, you're not really an adversary, you're a trading partner. Even if maybe you don't like each other, it's like, well, we kind of need each other. Like, oh, well, you guys, your economy depends on us buying the stuff that you mine, and our well-being depends on us being able to get the stuff that you mine for you selling it to us. Like,
Yeah,
that's important. And
that,
that,
that is
like,
definitely an important factor.
yeah, and I,
Like
I don't think we should go away from that ever. And we need to more embrace that, but also we shouldn't lose ourselves in the global structure. Like, I think it's important that there be more local, a sense of locality, community, things like that. Um, and for sure, a lot of stuff we should be making a lot of stuff locally. That I think is important. That like, okay, there's a lot of things we import, but there's a lot of stuff we make too.
But
Like
why?
that's a good
Like, why?
balance.
I mean, apart from transportation impacting environment and stuff like that,
Mhm.
like if it's made really well in Japan, for instance, who has a great reputation for quality,
Yeah.
um, why not have it done
Mhm.
there? You know,
Oh yeah.
like,
Well, actually, here's the thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to like interrupt your train of thought there, but I just this like for Japan, for instance, with cars,
mm,
Japan, like Toyota, has car factories within the U.S. There are U.S. made Toyota vehicles, and
yep,
then they import some from Japan, and the ones with the JN at the front of the your what you call it, the
VIN number.
VIN number, yeah. Those are the coveted ones. Everybody wants that because everybody knows the Japanese made engines are like rock solid. They're like,
Yeah.
500,000 miles without an oil change kind of engines.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's like, yeah, there's a good balance there because it's like, okay, well, at least there's options. I think
I had a
options are really
96
important.
Toyota Camry that was like totaled. So
Mm-hmm.
I got it super cheap. And I think the entire time I owned it and drove it, it didn't have an ounce of oil in it.
Yeah. Yep.
It still worked.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
had a bit of
Yeah.
a knocking noise, but it
Mhm.
worked, you know?
Well,
Like,
Top Gear famously did that, the Killing a Toyota episode where they had a Toyota Hilux, and they like drove it. They basically drove it crashing into things over and over again. They had a wrecking ball smash it. They put it
oh,
on
geez.
top of a building that was slated for demolition, and the building is demolished with the Toyota pickup on top, and they dig it out of the rubble. It still runs. They rolled it out into the ocean like for a couple of days. And
Oh,
then
wow.
the mechanic, the instructions for the mechanic, he could only use some basic hand tools, and maybe like a can of WD-40. So they pulled it out of the ocean and it started and ran. Like the thing is freaking indestructible. Like that,
Wow.
that's quality we should
Yeah.
all want. And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter where it comes from. And yeah, I don't have a like actually in China has they're a manufacturing powerhouse. They do make good quality products. Like when you spend some money on something made in China, like electronics and stuff, it's good. It's
Yep.
really good stuff. The downside, I guess, is that they also make a lot of shit that's really cheap, and people are buying this stuff. Clothing, fast fashion is another really annoying thing. Like people buying cheap clothing that doesn't really, it's only designed to
It's the
last.
knockoffs. I think
Yeah.
it's that fraction of the Chinese economy that's trying to make the quick buck by capitalizing on what's popular and
Mhm.
just making a cheapo version, you
Well,
know.
they also make a lot of just trinkets too, like
Mm-hmm.
just garbage little cheap things. I mean, there's the Oriental Trading Company. I'm sure you've come across that before. They import
Oh, that's
just
so racist.
little, well, that's the name. But they import a bunch of cheap little trinkets and toys and things like that. But it's like I'd like to get away from that, where people just buy things just to buy things. Like
Yeah,
we should be encouraging like having fewer but nicer things.
that's what I was going to say about the tariffs. Like,
Mm-hmm.
one nice thing that might come about is that maybe we'll move away from this culture of uh, this commerce heavy culture,
Yeah.
where it's like we just buy, consume,
Mm-hmm.
just for the sake of buying and consuming.
Yes.
Uh, I've noticed, like, living here in Germany, um, you don't have fast food every corner. You don't have like all these crazy malls, like there are malls and stuff, but like there's only a handful of stores that have chains throughout Germany and stuff, and a few international companies, and like, but they're very few and far between. It's not part of the culture here to just go out and buy things all the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
Sundays, everything's closed anyway. like you kind of have no choice but to relax at home,
Yeah.
so
And that's
like,
that's a good thing.
yeah.
Like actually, I'm going to get to that, but that just made me think too. Like companies like Chick-fil-A, right, or Hobby Lobby, like people criticize them for having like religious undertones within their corporate structure and stuff. But one benefit: all employees get a day off every week. Like automatically, you have a predictable day off, and that Sunday they're closed on Sunday. So that's actually a good thing, and because it's like, oh, that's healthy to be able to pace yourself, take a day and relax, maybe get some things done, whatever. That's a good thing. But yeah, it is a culture thing, I think, um, that we've kind of shifted in the U.S. away from that, and yeah, like just highly consumerist uh, culture, and yeah, maybe the tariffs, because it's like, well, it's not like you can't buy something from another country; it just costs more. So maybe now consumers will be more selective. Like, oh, well, I'm not going to buy that stupid cheap ass thing from China, but there's this cool thing. I'll buy it from China. Oh, it costs $20 more because of the tariffs, but it's a quality product, and you'll buy just the one thing instead of 20 things,
Right.
and that'll be. I think that's a good thing.
There's a
Maybe.
comment here. You can also get clothing of amazing quality for less money.
Oh, for like
I don't know if
import.
that's from China because I
Yeah, from
have got
China.
clothes from China and like,
Yeah,
um,
it is hit or miss. It's hit
yeah,
or miss with that stuff. But like you used to be able to get quality clothing for fairly cheap within the US, like US made stuff.
mhm.
Um, and people used to repair things. They used to repair socks, you know, like why I'd like to see that come back to the US, where it's like, oh yeah, actually there was a term, I'm sure you've heard it, fine China, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, well, because it used to be there were heavy tariffs on Chinese stuff a long time ago that kind of disappeared. That's why we have cheap stuff from China. But it used to be so expensive to import stuff from China, like tea and ceramic things like that, that people bought very few, and they treasured them. They had whole cabinets to display that stuff, because it was
Yeah.
really expensive importing something from China, you know. And now it's not. Now it's like, oh yeah, Chinese crap is like what people mostly say, you know, like cheap
Imagine
Chinese.
having like an entire wall of fine Timu. Like,
Yeah, fine Timu. Yeah, AliExpress. Ooh, look at this is my AliExpress cabinet. Yeah, exactly. Oh, and in here, this is my wish room. Ooh. People are like, oh, wish, wow.
is that a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers dildo?
Yeah. Ooh, is that a knockoff Prada bag from China? Whoa. I have a couple of real ones, but you have one of the special ones. It's a knockoff. Whoa. It's Proda.
Pro.
I yeah, I think the biggest problem, like I was saying before, the biggest problem is the kind of like haphazard, indiscriminate, like now, like, oh, let's just, kind of panic mode. Let's just do it all. And also not really creating kind of a sense of purpose of why it's being done. That because it's a nonpartisan thing. Like you could easily, everybody could get behind it. Like, when Kennedy's famous moon speech, about going to the moon in the next decade and stuff, everybody, Republicans, Democrats, whoever, everybody, even the communists got behind Kennedy, and everybody was like, yeah, okay, well, we'll divert all of our tax money into this big, expensive, crazy project, and and we did it. Like, same thing with the war effort too. People, they didn't necessarily begrudgingly ration their stuff. They did it because they believed in that victory was so important, and it wasn't just an organic, like a ground up kind of movement. It took some motivation.
We
And
definitely don't have that culture anymore. That
no,
that would not pass today at
No.
all.
And one of the division that and the that we have politically is a huge problem, and that people
Yeah,
cannot, even if this is the dumbass thing about politics in the US right now, even a topic that two people of different political leanings, if you agree on something, people still disagree
yeah,
just on principle. They're like, I can't possibly, like, oh, I would never want, your filthy Klingon blood in me, even if it's gonna save my life, like,
right. Yeah, I saw a video. So like Bernie Sanders and AOC are out on like a countrywide tour to kind of get people amped up about fighting the oligarchy and all that stuff.
mhm.
And they went to like a red district, and they were interviewing Republicans and former Republicans that came to hear them speak. And all of them were like, yeah, like I don't really align with Bernie on like his methods and stuff. Like they all pretty much said that verbatim. And then you've said that too,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Mhm.
but like what I really appreciated is that they were still there. They were like,
Mhm.
yeah, but like here's a guy who walks the walk, and he's out here doing this when he doesn't have to,
And that,
I want to hear what he has to say. Like those are the right minded people that are like, what, like whatever the methods are, at least we're talking about the same goal. And,
yeah, yeah, be open-minded and willing to listen, even
yeah,
if, like, even if you may not agree with something. I mean, and the fact is, 100% of people out there, uh, everybody will find something that they disagree with any other person about. Like,
right.
there is no consensus on everything, and that's okay. But, like, there's a lot of things that I think most people agree that might be a problem that needs a solution. And I
Why
and
don't
I address
why
things
don't
from
we
an
create a
engineering.
new political party,
Mm-hmm,
a whole new wing, if you
mm-hmm.
will, an open source wing,
Yeah,
like where the whole point is to discuss. Like,
sure. Well, like, and base concepts on scientific method and engineering principles.
yeah,
That we're like pragmatism, right? Where is that gone? Like, people, it's almost like everybody has been fighting over how or who, what we're going to do to solve the problem for so long that they've pulled, it's like a tug of war basically, and they're getting further and further away from each other, further
yeah,
from the sanity of the center, right?
right,
Like, and so it's like, man, y'all are fucking idiots. You're all crazy. Your
yeah,
ideas are harebrained. They're like off the rails. Like, why don't we come back together and look at this as like, I think most people can agree, like, say something like homelessness, right?
mm,
Homelessness is a problem. It exists, like, drug addiction, mental health, any of these things, poverty. Like, these are things that you can observe and measure.
I think
And
it's because like politicians don't really have project management skills. Like they
no,
aren't they aren't directing the conversation in the
well,
proper way.
here's the biggest problem with politics as a solution. There's no incentive. So
Mhm.
politicians don't get any kind of benefit when they solve a problem. They get a benefit whether they fail or succeed.
Right.
And it has to work the other way. It's kind of like, I don't know if it works this way now, but back in the day in China, um, a doctor wouldn't get paid unless they actually solved the problem, like cured the patient.
Yeah.
So if you were simply just working on it, you didn't get paid. So you only got paid when you solved it. And I would say, let's do that with politicians. If you make an extraordinary claim, like, hey, if you vote for me, I'm going to do this, right? And they get in and they don't do that, well, you don't get paid. In fact, you're
Yeah.
just, to quote Trump, you're fired. you
Yeah,
know?
that's kind of how we operated our business.
Mhm.
Um, we had like the concept of the non-economical repair when like we weren't really able to solve a problem,
Mhm.
or like we determined what would solve it would cost more than buying a new one, which is out of our hands. It's more of a economical situation
Yeah,
sort of thing, and we would have like a minimal $25 fee or something.
like an
Uh,
inspection fee. Yeah,
yeah,
and we
stuff
just
like
wouldn't
that.
charge. Even if I remember, there were some things where I looked at for like hours and days sometimes, and it determined like, yeah, this is not even worth it. So it's
Yeah.
like basically a bunch of free labor. And see, that's fair. That's the fair thing to do. Like,
Yeah.
why would you charge somebody if you can't fix it?
Mm.
you know and warranty repair, things like that. It's like, hey, if we said it was fixed and we brought it to the customer and gave it to them, they took off with it and it wasn't actually fixed, turns out, like I didn't fix it completely or something, then yeah, we other than parts, if it was like, oh shit, turns out it's like this other roller, we could charge for the roller but not the labor. Like, that needs to happen more and more, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really feel like more politicians should be coming from various different fields, scientists and
Yeah.
like people like people who didn't make politics their career. Like because
Yeah, that's what
that's too narrow, way too narrow.
that's what I was going to say, is like politics should not be a career.
No, it shouldn't.
I would almost say, they talk, I totally agree with this, term limits.
Yeah.
And I would say limit it to one term. You get one shot. That's it. You
Yeah.
don't, there's no chance for reelection at all. In fact, we've talked about it before, of like having politics be like a lottery, where if
Hmm.
you're a citizen of a country or a city or a state or whatever, that like you might get a letter in the mail being like, you've been selected, you know,
Yeah.
and like, okay, well, hey, why not? That way you get a broad variety of thoughts and ideas in, and you get people, who are not there out of self-interest. They're there because they're out of duty, right? That's a whole different philosophy.
Yeah.
And that would totally change things, I think.
Like,
Because currently the way it works, it's like they're not there out of duty. They don't care
no.
about you. No,
Yeah.
I don't care who it is, any politician ever that has ever lived. Maybe like a handful, one or two here and there, have been altruistic, and well intentioned, but good intentions doesn't equal good results, of course. But they're all self-interested. It's like, narcissistic personalities are the ones who are attracted to those kinds of positions. And we don't want that. I don't want that. I want
Yeah.
people who are actually interested in solving problems. Like you said, scientists. We need
Yeah.
engineers. We need an engineering mindset within the system. Like, how do we? I don't care what your stupid ideas are. I'm sure you got all kinds of dumb ideas and plans, and oh, look at this, and we're gonna do this and that. And it's like, yeah. Want in one hand, shit in another. I want results. Like, if we need, things need to be fixed. Like, look at Seattle with the homelessness and fentanyl and all this shit that's going on there. Like, they've been talking about it, spending more and more money, taxing more and more, like trying to. And it's like, there's more homeless people now than there were when you started, bro. What is going on? Clearly, you don't have a clue what to do about it. Like, we need to actually solve problems. And
Yeah.
otherwise, what's the point of having politics at all?
Right.
What's the point? If what, just for show? Why? No. Get out of here if you can't fix anything. No, I'd rather just us try to all fix it as a community, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think we'd be in better hands if we just winged it, right? Like, oh, I don't know, let's get together and have a powwow at the local community center and try to figure something out, and we'll just go ahead and do it ourselves.
Well, and like we talked about last week, the whole idea of like a competing system of government would
Mm-hmm.
probably light a fire under the ass of the sitting government,
Yeah.
to do things a little better, like maybe instead of like just pushing whoever's the most popular politician, like actually like find a person who's like kind of standing out in the crowd
Mm-hmm.
within the populace, and maybe there are scientists like really known for researching, and they might really dig into a problem. They might like be like, here, give me some notes on this, and then they'll be like, let me get my glasses on here, and
Well, and
they'll just
it would,
really get into it.
you need somebody who's like a project manager to bring in like assemble a team
Yeah.
of professionals to do something rather than like a lone wolf being like,
Mhm.
and that's what people look to in politics. They look at like this one, oh my God, this governor is gonna make everything better. No, they're not. They need a team of people. They're a bloody idiot. Like you need a team of people that know what to do, experts in fields or professionals or industry, uh, people that work in the field or something, to be able to figure things out for sure. Like it's a mess. And oh, well, I was going to say, bringing it back to tariffs, I I don't have a problem with the concept of tariffs, but I think surgical precision is a better way, right? Like, okay, let's address a problem. Here's a tool in our toolbox. We will use it selectively to try to correct things, and we'll do it methodically rather than just across the board tariffs. It's like Oprah handing, you get a tariff, you get a tariff, everybody gets a tariff. Like, no, that's dumb. It's like we were kind of briefly talked about like deportations and stuff. There's nothing wrong with, say, surgical precision. All right, well, let's identify people who are here illegally, who are like criminals, members of gangs, terrorist organizations, whatever, like people who would do bad things or who could do bad things or are doing bad things. Yeah, let's get rid of them. But the people who haven't done anything wrong, oh, whatever, we'll let it slide, I guess, maybe figure out some kind of thing. But like just kind of, basically burning everything down. Like, okay, well, that's stupid. It's the same thing as just tariffs for all. Like, no, we've got to be more thoughtful, I think, about what we do.
Here's what we do. We start a GoFundMe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the GoFundMe goal will be to pay this El Salvadorian prison just a little bit more than what the US government is paying them to arrest and house all the crooked politicians in our government.
I don't think they have that
play
jurisdiction.
mafia games,
Yeah.
Outbid the next gang,
Well, there's an easier way that doesn't
and the
involve
government is a gang.
Yeah, it's a thug for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And they use thug tactics. There's an easier way that doesn't involve any money, and it's my way, and it's just don't vote, don't participate, tune in, just or drop out, just get out of there, like stop participating.
Apathy doesn't help though.
No,
it might help you.
No, I'm not saying apathy. You can be apathetic towards the political structure, but towards the communal structure, towards your fellow people within your region, you don't have to be. I'm not saying like walk away from everything and don't do anything. No, go ahead, take it into your own hands. Go affect change, be the change that you want to see in the world, that kind of thing. And stop playing this dumbass game, like, because they want us to play the game, because of course that benefits the system. The system, it's like an emotional vampire. It feeds off of our frustration and anger and division and things like that, and our participation. It's like, I'm trying to think of the movie, I think, that involved like people not believing in fairies or something like that, and like, yeah. But it's like, our belief, our faith is what keeps it alive and gives it power. But like, good luck getting anybody to change, because again, everybody is so caught up in the fight.
It'll still function even if like one person in each state casts a vote. So like, how are you gonna?
How can you? There's no way. There's no way they can. The mental gymnastics to justify that, like to say, oh yeah, we have public support. I mean, in a country of like hundreds of millions of people, like 50 people voted. Like, okay, right. I think there's that nah. You're at that point, you're done. But again,
like you said, it's optics, though. Like Trump has, the only person that's had a lower approval rating at this point in his presidency was Trump the first time around, right? And and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and yet he still says like lots of people are really loving everything about what I'm doing and stuff. And it's like, okay, like you got rid of the penny, you got rid of paper straws. That's about like the most laudable things I can think of.
Oh, and there might be DST might finally go away too, so that'll be cool.
That would
Um,
be cool. Yeah.
it,
But
I mean,
like these are real small, nuggets,
yeah, yeah.
against
Although,
like
although
real
honestly,
problems. Yeah.
the thing is, those have been thorns in our side for a long time that apparently nobody can get done. So
Mhm.
it's like, well, hey, if at least if you do a couple of good things, that's fine. But again, people are caught up in the fight. Like they're so preoccupied with the antagonism of the one team versus the other. It's like sports ball and stuff, that they can't see that, you know what? It doesn't fucking matter who has the ball. It doesn't matter how many touchdowns they score. Like this game cosmically is absolutely irrelevant. It has no effect whatsoever on anything. So, I think it's one of those things where you can't. What's a good? I'm trying to think. Oh, well, for instance, with like non-monogamy, my mind would always fight that, the conditioning. And then at one point in time, it was like this moment of an epiphany, essentially, where like a clarity, where all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. And now I can't go back. Same thing with anarchy, right? Like, all this partisan politics, blah blah blah, like getting all caught up in it, and just that I had like a shower thought essentially, and I'm like, wait a minute, huh? Yeah, this is all stupid. Same thing with religion too. Like
Mm.
it just, and you can't. It's kind of uh, like oh geez, I'm losing my train of thought here because I've got too many going on
Well,
at once.
it's
But
like the red pill, blue pill thing, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, like for instance, with religion, right? I obviously grew up in a religious household like you did,
Mhm.
and over time, I became atheist essentially, but it was a struggle. But it was kind of like once I hit this certain threshold where all of a sudden everything made sense, and then all that other stuff didn't make sense, and I can't go back to that. It's not like I don't care how many Christians or Jews or Islamic people that I talk to, I'm not going to suddenly become religious again. No
Right.
amount of conversation is going to make me religious again. And the same thing with politics. I am an anarchist. No amount of political conversation is going to make me suddenly believe in like the philosophies of the Democrats or the Republicans or whatever. Like, I mean, I may agree with certain points here and there, but like, I'm not going to become a Republican or a Democrat. Like,
Right.
once
Fuck
you've
both
seen
of
it,
them.
yeah,
Yeah.
once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. It's like,
Well, here's the thing: like being a scientist and skeptical minded person, I'm very much evidence based, and
mhm,
like uh, from a hypothetical standpoint, I can see some merit in anarchy,
mhm.
but from an experimental standpoint, I don't think there's really anything substantial to point to and say, look, there's an anarchist society that's been thriving and like
Well, sure, exactly. Well, you can,
so that's where I come from on the standpoint of like leaning toward the idea of socialism is that like it is actually quite uh thriving in a lot of countries,
well,
you
and,
know.
and it depends because there's a lot of flavors, and even with anarchy,
Yeah.
there's a lot of flavors of it, just like
Yeah.
flavors of Linux.
Yeah. And
So
it totally like socialism is a political thing and capitalism is an economic thing and they can play it
mhm.
together. So
Yes,
it's not like
absolutely. Well,
it's
and
tied to communism or something.
that's kind of what I was going towards is like you can have a variety of different things. You can have an anarchist society with socialistic components to it and have
I
it
think they're
function.
very similar,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, oh, yeah. Well, and yeah, you can have one that's very industrial and capitalistic, but also has like anarchistic or socialistic aspects as well. It just depends on where you are and the type of people that live there, the culture of the area, and that's where there is no one size fits all solution. It has to be built by the people
Hmm.
essentially. for it to
Yeah.
work. And it has to be plastic. It has to be something you can change as things change, right?
Well, I think what we were talking about last week, the idea of competing governments could actually be seen as a form of anarchy. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
technically, it is
Mhm.
like a little chaotic,
Well,
but
here's the thing.
there's an order in there still. You
Well,
know?
and from an anarchist perspective, anarchy doesn't mean disorder. It doesn't even mean no hierarchies, even though some anarchists believe that. But that's, again, there's a lot of flavors. You
And
do,
archy though, like
but that, well, yeah, but you can have. I'm talking about like, so you have like constructed hierarchies versus imposed hierarchies. So constructed hierarchies are like, okay, we need to run a business. We
mhm,
need like a project manager, right? Somebody
yeah.
who's seeing the bird's eye view. Then we need people underneath them that are managing various components of this thing. And then we have the people doing the boots on the ground people, and everybody's coordinating things. You do have to have order. And even within anarchist culture, there are rules. Like
Mm.
you have societal rules that are not necessarily official, but like, well, everything works a lot better when we adhere to these rules, like very simple things. And very obvious things to most people. Like, oh, I don't know, don't fucking murder somebody. That is
Well,
wrong. It's objectively wrong.
I mean, the line between imposed and constructed gets a little blurred at some point. You know,
Yeah.
like you could argue that voting is your constructed, hierarchy, right? But like earlier, I mentioned approval ratings, right? Why do we even look at those when they have no consequence whatsoever?
They
Like,
don't.
shouldn't it be like if your approval rating is less than 66%, you're out of there?
Yeah. Well,
Like,
like I was saying
why not
earlier, it's
do
like
that?
we need results.
Yeah.
Like somebody, if they say they're going to do a thing and they don't do a thing, then they should be kicked out.
Mm-hmm.
Like simple as that.
Absolutely.
And of course, okay, with some caveats, of course, if they attempt to do something and there's some unforeseen barrier, right? That they're like, oh shit, we didn't realize it's more complicated than we thought. Then okay, well, you get a pass to work on it.
Okay, yeah, but that should pass the buck, like,
Yeah.
okay, who stood in your way? Now
Mm-hmm.
let's scrutinize them and be like, what did you guys do that for? Like,
Yeah.
why did you cock block this measure? And
Exactly.
and
Sure.
and take care of that. Like, it should never be like, oh well, that's just the way things are.
I guess we'll wait another 4 years.
Yeah, like
Like,
we really need to like have a system where the people are part of the checks and balances,
mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
we can actually administer consequences to the government.
Yes.
That is vital. That is
Oh,
something that was never actually, like, it was naively assumed that voting would handle all of that. And it's like,
yeah.
how
Yeah.
how did anyone ever think, oh, just wait until the next voting cycle and then not vote for them, and I assume all my neighbors will not vote for them too, because
Exactly.
logic, right?
Well,
Like,
I would actually, this got me thinking, like, what if instead of we're voting for people, we vote for projects?
mm,
So we're like, instead, that gets rid of
that's
the
a good
all
idea
the
too.
adversarial nature of politics at that point, because it's like, hey, there's this thing that
Yeah.
needs to be done. Oh, I don't know, all the highways are falling apart, bridges need repair. Maybe that's a priority, and then we can assign people to that are tasked to do those things, specific things.
Dude, there you go. Like, that idea, like voting, having democracy,
Mm-hmm.
like active participation in democracy, but your idea of like a lottery system for the people that are overseeing that.
Yeah.
Like, there you go.
Yep.
There are no more political party bullshit.
Nope.
Like, yeah. Oh
Well,
man.
and that's, yeah, exactly, because one of the things too, having the political parties, and we've talked about this before. It's like you couldn't be a pro-life Democrat and for very long. You couldn't be a pro-choice Republican, right?
Yeah.
Like they would your party would excommunicate you essentially. But like there are people, that such as myself, I believe in the right to self-defense. I believe in, people should be able to own firearms, but also when it comes to like the bedroom, I believe it's up to whoever, like, gay marriage, go for it. I don't, it doesn't bother me at all. And like pro-choice, yes, I'm pro-choice. I like personally, if I were in that position, I'd very much struggle with that, but I'm not going to impose my beliefs on anybody else.
All of them do. All of
Yeah.
them do.
Yeah,
Like it's
exactly.
not an easy situation to be in, of
No,
course. But
no,
like
but there are people who want to basically like, and that's the partisan side of things. Like you're compartmentalized. You're either this or you're that. You're either for us or you're for the terrorists or something. Like no.
There's no compassion in the whole pro-life, which is kind of a misnomer. But like, just imagine the worst situation you've ever been in, like the Sophie's Choice, and that like the whole government is there saying like forcing the Sophie's Choice, like,
Yeah.
well, you could have an option, but we're not letting you. So like,
Yeah.
here's your fucked up situation, and there's only one way out.
And that's where like if we flipped the script to where people are voting on projects, and then you have a lottery of random people in the communities that are affected by that, then there's no, well, you couldn't even have a political party at that point. What would the point be?
Right.
Like, so you just have people with your typical variety of ways of thinking. It might even, doing that might even open the door, like make people more open-minded, more willing to entertain other things that maybe otherwise they wouldn't, because
then they see things working that they were told their whole life by their party that absolutely could not work.
Exactly. Well, because here's the thing, it's like, okay, well, there are some, we talked about some ones that are hot button things, but those, well, let's just go down the line, I guess. Like the idea of abortion and things, that is a conversation that probably will always be going on, but I think to address it requires thoughtfulness. It requires people like, okay, well, is this something we should even regulate? Or if we do, how do we regulate it? What are the options? That kind of thing. Right. Look at it from a scientific standpoint, engineering standpoint, that kind of thing. Same thing with firearms ownership. Like, okay, well, how do we address that? It doesn't have to be an either or thing. Like there needs to be discussion about it, and it needs to be a nuanced approach. But then those are things that people do directly disagree on, right? Like they disagree. But there are things that people do agree on, like, oh, I don't know, having highways that work, having our forests managed correctly, so we don't have fucking fires all the time, like even simply the existence of these forests for the future, that like, hey, maintenance of these places, these wild spaces, and preserving species and things like that. And then I mean, there's the environment, of course, that it's like everybody wants that. This is the thing. The environment on its own is a nonpartisan thing. I know people on the left and people on the right, and they all want to care for the environment. Like, it isn't, but then it's like, oh, well, now somehow it became partisan. Like, I don't get it. What the fuck?
Everything becomes partisan for no fucking reason. Like, when you really break everything down, there's no reason that anyone should be putting things in one of two buckets.
Yeah.
Like, it's never like that.
Well, we saw that we saw that like get exacerbated during the coup, right? Like I don't understand how that was ever political to begin with.
Right.
And all sides are guilty, by the way. They're all fucking guilty of this. Like, it's okay. It's a disease that's going around. Like, okay, let's figure this out. Why does it have to be everybody's separating each other into camps and stuff, drawing the battle line? And it's like, what? But it's a thing it's like, if there's meteorites coming down, they're coming down. Yeah. What like, the hell?
Like, if the whole thing, if it were handled in a more structured and logical manner, would have saved millions of lives.
Yeah.
And all you had to do was tell people, and this is the thing that we did not do, is we need to shut things down for this amount of time. And here's what we're going to do to help people through this. And we'll pick up the pieces afterwards. And instead, what happened was like, we're going to reevaluate this every 2 weeks or so and open things up and close them down again and open things up and close them down again. And we would have all these waves as things like got worse and worse and worse and worse. And really, like, when it comes to, like, this is just fucking science. Like, if you just choke out a virus by not giving it the food it needs, like other people in proximity to other people to transmit to, it will die. We could have eliminated COVID in like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Eliminated it.
Well, absolutely. In fact, we could have prevented it from even getting to the US. That's the thing.
Well, I mean,
to other countries.
Yeah. I mean, that was out of our hands in the US, but once it hit Washington State, if the leadership, let's say, like whether it was the Democratic governor of Washington or the Republican President Trump, whoever you want to blame, it was mishandled on all fronts.
Oh, it was. Yeah. Well, and because I think a lot of times too, they brought it, well, like I kind of mentioned before, it's like having a team of people who actually know what the fuck they're doing. And but no, everybody didn't know what they were doing. And they were running around like a bunch of chickens with their heads cut off, like going this way, going that way, overcorrecting and just panicking. And of course, that's another thing too. It's like the media didn't help by spreading panic and alarm and only doing that and not providing like just basic.
There were people that knew, but they were being attacked by political sides.
But that's the problem, is the partisanism of things made people believe or disbelieve incorrectly. And that would not be a thing if we didn't even have that system. If it was projects only and a lottery system, like, because then there's no cabal to be, conspiracy theory kind of shit. Like, it's just regular people. Like, oh yeah, there's that guy that runs that business over there that's a 1%er, but also on his team is this guy that used to be homeless, and that kind of thing. Like, I'd like to see that a lot more, I think.
Yeah.
And even
emergency situations like COVID could have been like voted on in a manner like that.
Absolutely. Well, and
with whoever was holding the position from the lottery at the moment being responsible, like send out a vote, like, how should we handle this? The science is saying we need to shut down and socially distance. That's what we had to do in 1917, and it worked. So there's precedent. How should we move forward? And then people would vote, and more than likely, the majority would say, let's get that done and prevent, as many casualties as possible and get back to normal as soon as possible.
And going back to what I was saying way early is the optics, like the motivation of things. It was done wrong. Here's the problem. Rather than making it like a patriotic thing where it's like, oh, we gotta circle the wagons and solve this problem, it became like almost a dictate, like a decree. It appeared very totalitarian. So anybody who's skeptical of such things instantly responded negatively to that. And then the more they doubled down, the more the other side doubled down. And it's like, look, it's very simple. It's not that, but
I mean, that is a situation where you do that's like one of those situations where you kind of don't have a choice but to be a little bit forceful and regulate how things are being done, because it's one of those things where, like, if a few people aren't doing it, they're fucking the whole thing up, you know?
well, and at the end of the day, it's like it comes down to just some basic stuff like hygiene and changing a few practices, like stuff that doesn't cost you any money at all. That really goes a long way. It doesn't have to be extreme in either direction. I mean, it's a fucking disease, you know. Like
Yeah.
it isn't rocket science, you know. Like there could have been a few things, and you know, maybe start with those things. Make it your patriotic duty to never touch your face unless you've washed your hands. Like make it your patriotic duty to, like, oh, we're gonna stay a little ways away from each other. And oh, if you feel weird, stay home. You know, that kind of thing. Like just start there, I guess. And if it starts getting worse, then you can add layers to that. But like that didn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that those were strange times. Those were very
No
strange times.
kidding, man.
Like like there were definitely some huge negatives, but there were also some positives, like being sick less frequently,
Yeah.
just from the social distancing. Like that was kind of nice. Like
I
going two
actually
years without being sick was awesome. Like,
I so because during that time, like early on, so even in like 2019, I got in the habit of like, okay, whenever I come home, if I've handled anything outside, I wash my hands.
yeah,
If I'm gonna touch my face, like I got it, my nose is itching, I take my shirt and I scratch my nose that way. I just now instinctively do that.
yeah.
Since
I
that
I
time,
had been doing that for a few years at that
yeah,
time. Yeah.
since that time, I think I got sick like one time, and that's because I kissed somebody who already had like the flu or something like that. And well, you can't really avoid that. So we have some comments too. Um,
Oh yeah.
at the
At the time,
time,
they were dealing with incomplete information. Yes, that is true.
yeah,
Um,
but
2020 hindsight, but okay,
it
yeah,
wasn't
like
it was incomplete as far as the novelty of this particular virus, but it was not like we know how these
right.
kinds of viruses work.
But
Like,
like as part of 2020 hindsight, it was not like a late development that we need to be socially distancing.
yeah.
And that was the key. That
Mhm.
was the key. Had
Well,
we
and
done that, like it wouldn't have mattered if we were like, oh, it's not aerosolized. Oh, wait, it is aerosolized. Like that actually wouldn't have mattered, because if you're not anywhere fucking near the next person, aerosolized or not, it won't matter.
exactly. Well, and that's where, like, going back to the 2020 thing, 2020 hindsight, um, that's the engineering side of things. Okay, well, we made some mistakes. Some definitely mistakes were made all over the place. Got some things right, got some things wrong. Now we
Yeah.
know more. Like, okay, so now we have this
Science
in
is
our
wrong
toolbox.
all the time, but it
Yeah.
still has a better track record than just winging it.
Well, now we have this in our toolbox, and so this is the you know pandemic toolbox. And so when a pandemic happens, we open that and we're like, oh, yes, we have the tools to manage that. Maybe. I mean, at least we have something that's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Um, and then if that turns out, if like, oh well, shit, we didn't even know we needed something else because this is a whole new thing. Well, we add that into the toolbox and improve it.
Yeah.
So eventually, it's like the perfect kit.
Yeah.
Like you know me with my fucking survival kits and stuff like that. I work on those all the time. I'm always adding and subtracting, thinking about it, changing things. Like, and that's what we need to be doing with our societal structure, how we manage things.
Well, yeah. So there's a comment. It was a rapidly changing situation, new information every day. That's absolutely true, and that was all very vital.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like the the common sense suggestions at the beginning ended up being kind of the vital key to it all. And it wasn't like we just came up with that out of nowhere. Like, those are common sense situations. Like, when someone is sick, if you stay pretty far away from them, you have a relatively high chance of not getting whatever it is they have. Like, everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Everybody already intuitively knows that. However, once you tell people to do that, they're immature little crybabies are like, well, because you told me I have to do it, I'm not going to do it now. You know? And it's like, well, great. You just fucked everyone over, you know?
It's the resistance to authoritarianism, really, is what it is. And people don't like being told what to do.
I mean, however, that's dramatizing it a little bit, but
well, no, that's how it is. And that goes back to the
nobody was being thrown in a gulag over it, you know? Like,
there were people being arrested for quite a few things, actually. But it doesn't matter. My point is, like, you can avoid that by changing your methodology of how you suggest all these things. Instead of making it a decree, you make it your patriotic duty to help your fellow man, you know, like, we're in this together as Americans or whatever, you know, something like that. That
will motivate better.
That'll motivate people. And, you know, as dumb as as propagandistic as that sounds, it's like, yes, but that will work. That will work a lot better, because now it isn't a partisan thing. It's not like a particular government that maybe you like or don't like telling you something. It's like, oh yeah, hey, there's this thing, like, we got to do these things, you know.
It is propaganda, but for the right reason.
And propaganda,
which we call advertising.
But propaganda is not all negative, by the way.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Advertising, marketing, that's basically propaganda. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, you can motivate people to do things that maybe they would otherwise not do. I mean, half the time, most people, it wasn't that they were objecting to the government. They were just indifferent. They're just lazy. Like, whatever, I don't want to do that. But, you know, if you make it something that's a patriotic duty or something, then lots of people will do it. And you're not going to get everybody. They didn't get everybody anyway. You know, so it's like, all right, well, we just accept that. But, you know, if you have enough people doing it, then you can, like, manage a crisis. And that's really what it's like, crisis management. Of course, step one, relax. That's the first step in crisis management. But
I mean, it definitely did a lot of damage, though. Like, I kind of think my dad would have been alive today, because I ended up taking a job in Puyallup, and it was like a small business, and they were a little bit quick to go back to this whole, like, butts and seats kind of thing. And I ended up getting COVID, and of course, like, I was taking care of my dad almost like every day at that point. And so the incubation period, I'm pretty sure he got it, because I never tested him, but, like, he got sick right at the same time I was having COVID, and then he had his heart attack, and he was dead 2 years later, you know. Jeez. So, man, in a way, like, COVID.
And this is the thing is, it isn't just like this particular strain that could be a problem. Even just a regular flu, regular cold, that kind of thing. People in compromised conditions, old people or whatever, like, you probably want to be careful about that.
This is a good point to talk about RFK Jr. and like the comeback of measles and polio and shit like that. It's like, we really have to stop this shit. Like, this isn't a partisan thing. Vaccines are safe. They've been shown to be safe for decades. Like, there's nothing new that's going to come out all of a sudden and say, like, oh shit. Like, even if, like, as a person who's more than likely autistic, I can tell you, even if a vaccine made me autistic, which it didn't, I would rather have that than be dead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, okay, there
Whatever
might be
difficulties come with it, it's
there,
better
there
than
might be
dead.
slight risk, but yeah, you're right, because yeah, certain some of these diseases are very deadly,
Hmm.
and polio, you know,
Yeah.
like, well, yeah,
Even Mitch McConnell was like, I'm a polio survivor. We need to have these vaccines, you know?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well, and that's I think this the that is a harmful outcome of the whole COVID thing, is that like, we never really resolved the antagonism to uh like big drug companies, and
mm,
uh all the conspiracy theories around stuff like that. um and it made it worse now. Like,
yeah.
people have even more distrust. They distrust the government, which I think is, yes, good. You should start there. But but they just distrust medical science as well. Which, like, okay, when you're talking mega corporations, I can see there's certainly there's a place for caution, at least.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
Yeah.
we don't want to have they shouldn't have unfettered control of
Well,
everything
that's
and
the
stuff.
thing. Don't distrust science. Distrust like the corporation running the science, or like the individual corporation running the
Yeah,
science,
yeah, yeah.
because even they will differ. Like, don't distrust the government, distrust the politicians, or maybe like the party as a whole or something.
Well,
But
I
there might be
generally,
outliers within the party that are speaking rationally, and you shouldn't just be like, yeah, but they're the
well,
other team.
people,
So
well, that's the problem, is
like,
what we're just talking about, is there's knee-jerk reaction to the other team. It's like, you know
mhm,
what, there are intelligent people on all sides, and
yeah.
there are dumb people on all sides. You shouldn't just blindly trust or blindly mistrust anybody. I guess my point about the government is more like bureaucracy. I don't trust bureaucracy. I, I think it's harmful. Does a lot more harm than good. And
Yeah.
yeah, big corporations and stuff like that. We should all be skeptics, honestly, because there are big companies that do good things. There are big companies that do bad things, or some good things and some bad things, or whatever. It's like, they're not automatically evil or automatically saintful. They're just companies, and they're just
Yeah.
bureaucratic systems and politicians. They're
There's
human
big
beings.
companies that made good decisions in the past. There's big companies that make good decisions in the future.
Yeah. Oh man, was Dan Quayle, was it?
Dan Quayle.
Yeah. Oh my God. There's so many juicy,
Paraphrased Dan Quayle.
yeah, there's so many juicy nuggets in there. Like, he said some wackadoodle stuff. Oh my God. Hmm. 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 Well, I
I
think
think
we're
that was my first um, uh, political awareness in my life,
uh-huh.
was Dan Quayle being a goof. Like,
Yeah. Which I'm sure he's actually a pretty okay bloke on his own, but just like, yeah, in front of a camera and a mic, like, man, the guy was, oh, well, he's a bumblefuck. Like, I mean, same thing with GW Bush too.
mhm.
Just like
Yeah,
all over the place, but actually
nice
kind of
guy, but kind of dumb.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yep. I mean, you see that all the time. I mean, there's
Yeah,
like, Carter is a good example too. Terrible politician, but awesome humanitarian.
yeah.
That, yeah, crazy, man.
And
Well,
then JFK, great politician, kind of a shitty person.
yes, yes, exactly. Like, yeah, in his private life was not in order, shall we
Mm.
say? But yeah, absolutely, yeah, great person as a politician.
But like, one doesn't dictate the other. So
No, no, it's separate the art from the artist,
like,
essentially.
that's the cancel culture ideology, is to think that, like, oh, well, this person thinks in a way that I don't like, so anything they've contributed to the arts are automatically a no-go. Like,
Yeah.
you know, no,
Or
you
yeah,
fucking idiot.
they
Like,
have a different view on one thing, and all of a sudden you try to cancel them.
mhm,
Like, yeah, which is bogus.
yeah.
That I can't stand that, man. It's like, people, I don't know honestly where it comes from, because like, when I look at people I'm just like, oh, that's a human being with various traits and features and quirks, just like every other person. And like, I assume nothing.
Yeah.
Like, treat everybody, equally, and give everybody
I
the
mean,
same chance.
I totally understand if you're soured on a person and anything they're associated with. That's fine. That's your prerogative. Like,
Sure.
if you don't want to watch Harry Potter anymore because you don't like the joke J.K. Rowling made,
Mhm.
okay. But telling other people that they should do the same thing and boycott a person and all their works based on you not liking them,
Mhm.
that's fucked up.
Yeah.
And that's not hypocritical of me to say, because I think it's fucked up for anything else. Like, if you don't like abortion, you shouldn't get an abortion, but you shouldn't tell other people not to get an abortion. You know,
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
like
Yeah,
it's
for
just
sure.
be consistent. Like, be in your own bubble, like
Mhm.
handle your own universe the way you want to handle it, and let other people do their own thing.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. I don't see how that's so difficult.
right.
It seems like kind of obvious. Like, hey, we'd have a really smoothly functioning society if everybody did that.
Yeah.
Generally mind your own business. There might be things where you might want to get vocal about stuff, and that's fine. Um, like things that are objectively wrong, okay, but then again, give people chances because people do make mistakes. So like just because somebody did something bad a long time ago doesn't mean they're bad forever. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they have a history, right? Like, okay, well, yeah, if there's a serial killer that's killed 50 people over the course of 30 years, you probably don't want to leave them. Just be like, well, I think they'll be fine. We'll just let them out. No, maybe that's somebody I think we can keep in jail forever. That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if your mindset is that something that somebody did 30 years ago makes them a bad person today, and you're against the death penalty, you're a very horrible person, because you would just rather have that person suffer for the rest of their life
Mm-hmm.
for something they did 30 years ago.
Yeah,
Like, you're the asshole. Like,
exactly. Well, and
like if you would want them put to death over that, that would be still an asshole move, but better than
this is
torturing them
true.
for the
Yeah,
rest of their life for something they did 30 years ago,
I
because there's no incentive for them to get better.
I actually think that torture is worse than murder.
Yeah.
I for sure. I mean, depending on what it is, but definitely torture can be worse than murder. And
No,
yeah,
yeah.
you're
Yeah.
right. Why do that? And I believe that most people, almost everybody out there, can improve. Like they're not beyond repair, essentially. And here's the thing: it, if they're, if you have a process for repairing people, rehabilitation or something like that, and they're in there going through this process and they come out and they're not repaired, then, well, the fault is not on them, it's on you.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
the idiot that didn't know how to fix it. You're the auto shop that said, oh yeah, I could change that transmission, and then you let it, the vehicle go out and like fucking third gear doesn't work or something. Like, oh, okay, wait, what? No, no.
Speaking of accountability, like,
Yeah.
there's another thing. Like, if a person gets out of jail, serves their time, and they're supposedly rehabilitated, and then they commit another crime, the fucking jail should be partially liable for that, right?
I agree. Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
didn't do your job correctly.
Yeah.
The warranty period uh, has not expired on this person,
Yep, that's a
and
really good point. Yeah. No, that's a really, really good point.
yeah, there's no accountability for government. Zero.
Yeah, we've talked about that. I think even earlier in this episode, there's no
Mm-hmm.
consequence for failure. Like whether somebody succeeds or fails in politics, they still get a paycheck.
Yeah.
Like that's wrong. No, no. Not only if you fail at your job, not only like, especially as a politician, any position of authority, right? If you're a cop, politician, whatever, if you fail at your job, like, and not in a, unavoidable circumstance, oh, I couldn't control the circumstances, and that was why I failed. No, you failed because you're an idiot. If you fail, not only do you not get a paycheck, you get a fine. You get a fine on top of that. So it comes out of your ass. So that'll shape people up real quick.
Yeah. Because then tax dollars aren't being wasted. They're being reimbursed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How about that?
Yeah.
That'd be nice. I'd be willing to pay tax in a situation.
Yeah. You want to be a government worker and get a fat paycheck? Okay. But with the fat paycheck comes fat responsibility.
Like, yep. Exactly. Yeah. Like, if you're a school and you churn out a bunch of students that can't read, well, guess what? You're getting shut down. Or everybody's fired. We're selling the property to another company that hopefully will do better. Something like that. I mean, because we can't keep spinning our wheels and expecting things to change. Because that's essentially what we're doing right now. Like, all over the time.
Definition of insanity.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Like the only way to change,
a great way to sum up politics.
I think so. Yeah. Probably a great way to sum up the whole episode, because I think we've rambled on long enough, as always.
Yeah.
But we covered quite a lot, and it does tie in to tariffs. And
I just made a note. Like, I think a whole episode could be devoted to this idea of government accountability.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very important topic that people really need to be bringing to the foreground, I think.
Yeah.
Especially right now. Like, there are no incentives whatsoever for the government to do anything in the interest of the people.
Nope. And there's no consequences.
Gotta get it out of your head that voting will fix anything.
Yep.
Like,
and there's no
voting's great to have, but it's not a fix all.
No, it's not the only thing you should be doing. That's the thing. And there's no consequences for the political system if they don't succeed.
Yeah.
And there,
like, if you're mishandling COVID, you're gonna wait 4 years to vote someone out and millions of people are dying. Like, no, you should be like, hey, you fucked this up. You're out of here. We need somebody in here now that can fix this, like,
and even just like civil projects, right? Look at how many, even around here in Washington State, the Sound Transit bullshit, the fiasco, like trying to build all these things, and they quote the price of it. Oh, it's going to be this much money, and then of course over time it balloons and it's way more expensive. It takes way longer. They never finish it. That's like, hey, no, you should be out. Like, I wouldn't. This is the thing. As a private person, I would not stand for it if I hired a contractor to replace my roof and they said, well, yeah, we could do that for $20,000 or whatever in this amount of time, and it's like a couple of months or whatever, we'll have it all squared away, and it's summertime, and then they start on the project, they tear everything off, and they're like, well, actually, it looks like it's going to be another $20,000. And actually, by the way, it's going to take longer. And now the rain is coming and it's wintertime and I don't have a roof still. I wouldn't stand for that. First off, I'd say like, no, stop it. I'm not paying you. You're a bunch of shitheads. Why do we stand for it when it's politically run?
You had a golden idea, the idea of the fucking decade with voting for projects.
Yeah.
Because that's how you get around this whole fiasco of representatives not representing people.
Yeah.
Like then you, the people, are saying, here's the project we demand gets done correctly. Yeah. And if it's not done correctly, you're out. Like,
yep. And you don't get paid.
And there's no term limits. There's just a lottery. Like, whoever is tasked with dealing with it, well, they may or may not succeed, but then the next person might do better,
and societally it should also be, we should almost be like conditioned to appreciate and admire people who accomplish those tasks,
Yeah.
right? Like if there's a difficult project, like, well, what's his name? God, I can't remember his name. But then again, I wasn't alive then. The NASA guy, who managed Apollo 13, he was like the head of the anyway. But he's admired, you know,
Yeah.
because this is really difficult project or problem that he kind of oversaw them solving, and like, yeah,
That brilliant Richard III bit. Yeah.
yeah,
Now something something.
yeah.
Brilliant. Unforgettable.
It's been a while. I'm bad with names too, so don't ask me to remember names. But you know, maybe we need to be not putting people on a pedestal because they're a, you know, musician or an actor or something, but they're a civic project manager that actually saw something through, like a really cool project, that made a difference.
Yeah.
You know, I actually I watch a lot of these videos, engineering videos and stuff, especially historical stuff, where like in London long ago, so I think we're talking like 1800s, um, the Thames River was used as a dumping ground, right? Like sewage would just pour into it and stuff, but it's a tidal river, so it would stop flowing sometimes, and all that sewage would just sit there stinking, and you know, nobody wanted to do anything until this one particular summer when the stink lasted for a really long time and it was really hot, and the parliament, the building for parliament was there, and they had their windows open, and it just got so awful, you know, people's eyes are watering and stuff, and they decided, oh, we got to do something about it, and they built one of the most amazing sewer systems ever, like carrying all of that sewage out of London, taking it all the way to the ocean instead of just dumping it in the river. And it's an incredible feat of engineering. Like, and they did it in lickety split time too, you know, probably for good reason. But
Yeah.
like, that's an admirable thing. Like, damn, we did something amazing that actually benefits everybody, benefits from this. I mean, yeah, it was an expensive project, but it was worthwhile. Like, oh yeah, we have a cool sewer system now.
Yeah.
Like,
and before that, I went fishing there one time. I caught this 2-pound black rib novel.
but I think we need that mindset of like the project idea, like doing projects rather than just voting in politicians who make a bunch of pillow talk promises, which of course we know they never you know, carry forward with whatever they say they're going to do, or if they do, it's sort of like a half-ass attempt at something, or just like, oh yeah, here's a nickel, kid, you know, like,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, we got to change things. I mean, across the board.
Yeah.
This whole episode actually involves like change. There's a lot of ideas there.
Yeah. Yeah. All from tariffs.
I know. see how we are. We take this one little seed and turn it into a whole fucking forest, man.
Well, we definitely came up with some ideas in this episode that would really set the world in a better direction, I think.
I agree. Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah.
That's my goal. I think it's your goal. It's our goal. Is a channel is to provide ideas to make things better. I want the world to be better. I want the next generation to live in a better world.
Yeah.
In whatever way.
We should just pool our resources and find an island somewhere, buy it, and start our own society there.
Yeah.
With no money, just a integrity economy, and voting on projects rather than people. You know, like,
well, and that's the scientific way. Conduct experiments, right? Like, we have a hypothesis now, so let's conduct an experiment.
Yeah, I mean, what would you rather have? A good person or a good idea for a problem, you know?
The idea is certainly better, yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you can have like the nicest guy ever, like Jimmy Carter, for instance, but you hand him certain problems, maybe he's not so good at it, you know?
Nope. And maybe
the projects, you know, like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is more of a thing where I think like a majority would have less um, tyranny
Hmm.
possibility. Like projects for improvement typically aren't going to be something that could be like politically hijacked to
No.
like like further some ulterior motive.
Well, and think about it this way too, like the Sound Transit thing. That was basically produced by people who were voted in, like in a roundabout way, but essentially like people didn't scream out like, "Oh my God, we need a rail system." No, it was politicians who decided that there's going to be a rail system and it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you your ass, and they're going to do it come hell or high water. Like, okay, well, we didn't want that. Maybe improving I-5 would have been a better thing to do. Lots of people probably would have wanted that. I think anybody that commutes along I-5 would be like, yeah, we need to fix that shit. But they're like, nah, we don't care about that. We just care about this
Granted, how
fucking rail.
wide can they make it before it gets better? Like,
Well, there's ways of improving just
especially the bottleneck in Seattle.
well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like improving the flow of traffic and things like that. There's a lot
Yeah.
of ways, but that's the point.
405 was not a good answer to that.
Nope.
So,
No. 167. They're all slow as
yeah.
shit. I mean, but they're designed stupidly. That's the problem. Like I've been talking about this forever. The problem isn't we don't need more lanes and more freeways and roads. We need roads that are designed intelligently, you
Mm.
know. And that's the problem. Politicians are not intelligent designers. It's not what they do.
I tell you what, like the Autobahn here is not at all intelligently designed. There
Mhm.
just happens to be less people living here, so it's not so much of a problem. But
Mhm.
if like I was dealing with this today, like just the way the freeways here are set up, very aggravating, very
Mhm.
like last minute. Oh shit, I needed to go that way, and now I have to spend 20 minutes turning around.
Yeah.
Um, if that happened in the U.S., it would be a fucking nightmare.
Oh yeah.
So as bad as things are in the U.S., they are technically engineering wise better.
They are, but they could certainly be a
Um,
lot better though. The thing
yeah.
is there's very simple things that could improve things a lot.
Oh, and the
And
roundabouts here are the fucking worst.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Well, we don't need to get on a tangent about stuff like that because that would be its own episode probably.
Especially
And,
Belgium. Oh my god.
and we should actually talk about that because I have a lot of ideas and I think that'd be an interesting discussion. But this is the point: is you're never going to get improvements when there's no incentive to improve,
Mm.
and you're not. It's like, well, and here's the thing: people that vote for politicians, and maybe a particular politician is like, yeah, I want to improve I-5 or make this thing better or whatever, but then they have a whole bunch of stupid ideas that come with as baggage with them, and it's like, well, maybe I don't want that, like
Right.
all these other
Yeah.
stupid ass things. Why can't you just do this one thing?
Yeah.
And so either nothing gets done or something gets half-assed put together or whatever, or it gets worse. Like, oh yeah, we're going to improve I-5 and just a bunch of idiots are working on it and they spend a ton of money and there's construction for a decade. And then at the end of the day, it's worse.
Yeah.
Like that has to change. And we could like roads are a good example to work on because I think that's kind of a nonpartisan thing.
Yeah.
But you can extrapolate that to everything else. Like, okay,
Yeah.
take this thing and then apply it to all other things because none of those things are different from each other. They're just societal things that people want changed or improved. Like, I think we can manage that. Um, but we're not going to manage it by doing the same thing over and over again, i.e., voting.
Yeah.
That it doesn't look. When has it ever changed anything? Like it, at least not for the better. It's never changed anything for the better.
Well, and if it has, it's been like initiatives for projects,
Yeah.
like it's things that have like a very solid definition of what's successful and what's not, and has little to do with like one individual person's like vision of how they're going to make it happen, you know.
Yeah.
In a system where nothing is done by an individual.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
well,
how does any of that make sense, that we vote for an individual to manage all these projects that are handled by many individuals?
Quite
like,
a lot.
many individuals,
different departments and organizations with underneath them and stuff. Yeah.
Next week we should talk about government accountability and the idea of like how to like really refine the way we handle democracy, you know.
Well, and the thing is
the
too,
engineering of the government, you know.
well, going back to that too, there's cronyism within a system too, that, like, you know, various politicians get kickbacks. Oh, look, funny how it is when somebody initially gets voted in for the first time, their net worth is like $100,000, and by the time they're out, their net worth is like tens of millions of dollars. Where did all that money? Their paycheck? There's no way. How? Fishy. Well, and I just, speaking of roads and construction projects, it brought up a thought, and it's kind of murky because it was a while ago. I was kind of a kid, but the last like Republican governor that we had in Washington State, Gary Locke, we all know that, you know, Narrows Bridge was really shitty. Like, traffic was terrible there, and for a long time, people have been talking about, well, we need to widen it or build another one or something like that. But so during his tenure, there were a lot of propositions put forth and stuff, different ideas and stuff, and this Canadian company came forward and was like, hey, you know what, you got a lot of nice fast moving water coming through here. We will build you a bridge for free, and it'll be a hydroelectric bridge. So the Narrows running through will generate electricity, which we will give you like 20% of. The rest of it goes to Canada, but the bridge is free. And that got nixed. Like, what? Why? Stupid. That would have benefited everybody. Like, right? Imagine that. Like, cheaper power, a free bridge, you don't have to pay tolls to cross. Like, everybody wins. Where's the downside? But you know that there's somebody in the system who had a friend who they were going to, you know, shovel into the system, contracting company or bridge building company or whatever, and they were going to get kickbacks from. So, was Locke was a Democrat? Okay. But still, it's irrelevant. Like, the politician.
Yeah, I think Booth Gardner was the last.
Oh, yeah, Gardner. That's right. Yeah, it's hard to keep track. But that's the point. Is like, we could have had a very easy solution that would have been beneficial for everybody. Yeah. Everybody wins, but somebody wanted their piece of the pie and decided, no. Now Eric, when he crosses the fucking bridge, pays like $650, you know, to cross that bridge.
Years ago, when I thought about running for governor, that's definitely one of the things I would have gone to Canada and been like, hey, is that still on the table? Can we kind of like retrofit the other bridge and make that deal still happen? Like, we'll just take 10%.
Yeah.
You know, like,
or just build hydroelectric power plants and stuff like that. It doesn't even have to be a bridge. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like, we need to change our philosophy, our way of doing things to be more constructive towards the citizenry, towards the populace. So yeah,
John Spellman. I don't even remember that one. Well, I was quite young.
81 to 85. Yeah, I was a little kid at that point in time.
Gardner must have been after that, because I do remember Booth Gardner.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to keep track.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I have to take a leak. So.
Yeah, so I think we're in it almost 2 hours. So I think this is a good stopping point, and we're definitely going to come back to some of these concepts for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this this particular video, and leave some
Thank you for the
comments down.
comments and the
Yeah.
real-time Googling of things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, I
Gardner
guess.
was also a Democrat. Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, there you go.
Good
So
old
it has
blue
been.
Washington. Like never any Republicans.
I know. Yeah.
like,
The dying breed, I guess, in this
like
state.
1889 was like probably the last.
Oh man. Oh
Oh,
geez.
Republican didn't work so well. Let's just never do that again.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, okay. Well, everybody, thanks for watching, and subscribe down there if you feel like it. Leave comments if you feel like it. Share if you feel like it. And we do this every Sunday, so come back and watch again if you feel